Hey chess friends, welcome to a new video. Today we are going to work with typical mating patterns. This is the second part for this thematic. In the first part I saw you really enjoyed, you really liked that video, so here we have the second part of this theme, typical mating patterns. The first mating pattern we're going to study today is going to be Backrank Mate, a very famous pattern, and the idea with this pattern is that the king is in the first or the back rank and he's blocked by his own pieces. Almost always those pieces are pawns, and then there is a check over the rank and it's going to be checkmate. This mating pattern is very annoying for beginners, so if you are just starting, remember at some point during middle game try to open the window so your king is getting some fresh air and you don't get checkmated with a backrank mate. So let's see an example where this happened in a real game. This was played by Capablanca as white, and in this position, as you can imagine, it is white to move. White is winning. I will say the answer in some seconds, but if you want, I really suggest you pause the video, you think by yourself, you analyze, and then you check what Capablanca actually played in this position. Okay, this position is actually surprising. I mean, in this position it's not easy to find out that black has backrank weakness here. They have the rook, also they have the queen protecting or controlling d8, so it's really hard to find any idea winning with a backrank mate. But we will see that there are some ideas. For example, white can play this check. This is knight h6. There's a pin, so the pawn cannot really take. So knight h6 is very annoying. The king has to go to h8, and then what? Let's analyze a little. This pawn is attacked by the knight, but it is very well protected by the rook and the queen. But if we analyze a little, the rook is protecting the back rank, right? So the rook is not very well, it's not really protecting the pawn very well, we could say. And what about the queen? Well, the queen is protecting, but the queen has to protect the bishop as well. So one more time we see that the other defender of this pawn is not doing a really good job in that situation. So if we see it in that way, we can think about this nice move. After knight h6, king h8, we can think about this beautiful idea. Queen takes e5. The idea is that when the queen takes, they do have to take, because otherwise we have a piece up. And when the queen takes, then white can play this fork here, because as we said, the rook has to protect the back rank now, and we are getting the queen back now. So there is a problem, there is a big problem here for black. If they don't take, then white takes the queen with a piece up, and if they take, then we have check, and when black blocks, then we capture, and this is going to be checkmate using this backrank idea. As you can see, backrank mate is a very simple pattern, but it can get as complicated as we want when we use it with some other ideas on the board. The next mating pattern we are going to study today is going to be the blind swine mate. The idea with blind swine is that we will have the two rooks in the 7th rank, very active, and there will be an opponent's rook blocking the king, so we can play this idea of check check and then mate with the other rook. So let's see it. So check check, and then the other rook comes, and this is mate. I want to take advantage of this moment and say that every time you can take the two rooks to the 7th rank is very often very well, and in general if you can do that, you're going to win the game, unless you have some big problem in the position. If you can take the 2 rooks to the 7th rank, it's probably the most important rank or one of the most important ranks on the board. If you can do that, probably you are winning the game because of the activity of these heavy pieces. So let's see an example where we can see blind Swine Mate in a real game. In this position, it is white to move and white is winning. Try to find their way to win, and I will explain everything in some seconds. Okay, as you can see, white has the 2 rooks in the 7th rank. That's very well. Also, there is an interesting knight here on f6, controlling squares around black king, but there is a small problem. Black is just trading a couple of rooks here, which is very well for them, because as white pieces are so active, if they can trade some of those pieces, it's going to be much better for black king and for black pieces in general. So they want to trade, but we don't want. But there is a problem. If we take here, the knight is hanging. The rook is taking the knight. So it seems like we will have to trade. However, if we analyze a little deeper, we can see that after rook takes pawn, rook takes knight, this rook cannot move too much. So if we play something like king e5, notice that the king is completely safe here on e5. I mean, the bishop is running over light squares, so the bishop will never be able to create any threat on our king here. And also the rooks cannot do too much. I mean, the rank is blocked, also the file is blocked, so there's no danger for the king on e5 by now. So we're getting the rook now, and black has 2 options. They can either play rook f8 or rook a f8. But guess what? After the rook goes back or the other rook comes to protect, we have the same mating pattern we studied with blind swine. So let's see the way to play here. Rook takes pawn. We are threatening mate here. Black has to take now, and then king e5. We are getting the rook, so we gave 1 piece, we got the rook. It means we got the exchange if black doesn't save the rook. And if they try to save it with a move like rook f8, then check and checkmate. The third mating pattern we are going to study today is this one we call hook mate. In hook mate, we need the pawn protecting a knight, and also the knight will be protecting the rook here. So we can play something like rook e8. Notice that the knight is also controlling d7, so the king cannot go there. And also notice that there is an opponent's piece blocking the king, so he cannot go over there. In general, this piece is a pawn, but I guess it can also be a knight or a rook. So let's see an example of hook mate. In this position, it is white to move. Try to think a little by yourself, and I will explain what happened in this game in some seconds. Okay, in this position, as you can see, white has the 2 rooks very active, also the queen and the knight. It seems very well. So white can take advantage of all this situation and sacrifice to destroy, open some lines, and then with the other pieces behind try to find a mating net or a mating position. So the first move here is going to be this beautiful sacrifice, queen takes pawn. The king has to capture, and then we can play this check. The king has to go back to e8, that's the only move. And then we can play this simple but extremely strong move, knight g6. Now we are threatening mate here on h8. There's no way to stop this mate. Only way is moving the rook. But even if black moves the rook, there will be checkmate. Let's say rook f6. Then white can play rook h8 and then rook f8. And here we have this variation of hook mate. Notice that this time this is not a pawn protecting the knight. This time we have a rook protecting the knight. Also notice that there is a rook here blocking the king. We don't need it because the knight is already controlling, but it's also there. So you know, it's like a variation, but is the same idea with Hook Mate. Also very interesting here is that after queen takes pawn, check, and knight g6, there is a mating net here, and black won't be able to escape out of that mating net. And the last mating pattern we are going to study today is this famous but very important one we call Smothered Mate. The idea with a Smothered Mate is that black king is going to be blocked by his own pieces everywhere, and there will be a small check with the knight just winning the game. So this is like the basic position, something like this, where we can sacrifice the queen to make sure the rook is blocking, and then we can do the check here. But we can complicate Smothered Mate a lot. For example, we can go a little back, and in this position we can start the Smothered Mate also in a forced way. For example, we can check, and the king has to move. Well, notice that rook takes knight, there's Backrank Mate, so the king has to move and then check, and this is the position we saw just some seconds ago. So we sacrifice and then mate. With these ideas, there are many variations of a Smothered Mate. We're going to see an example now. In this position, it is white to move, and white is winning. So try to think a little, and see you in some seconds. Okay, white has some very nice attack possibilities. Notice that we have a queen, a rook, two knights over there. Black king is a little open here, so it's not so safe. But yeah, they're protecting a little with the rook and the knight. In some way, it seems like they are holding the position, but it's not going to be that easy. There is a very nice combination white can play here. The right move is going to be this queen takes pawn. Now white is threatening checkmate over here, or maybe rook over here, winning. So black won't have too many options. If they capture with the rook, there is mate on g8 anyway. So probably the most interesting line is capturing with the knight. But then guess what? We have Smothered Mate. One more time, a variation of Smothered Mate. White can play here rook g8, deflecting the rook, and also blocking black king, and then knight takes knight is going to be checkmate. Notice that in this variation there isn't a pawn blocking the king. Instead of that, we have a knight controlling g7, but the general idea is the same. So this is the video I wanted to show you today. I hope you have enjoyed it. If it was like that, give me some likes. Also, feel free to write any comments about any mating pattern we didn't mention here, or about any mating pattern we mentioned and you want to ask or say anything. Feel free to write in the comments. I think there is enough material to prepare a third part of these videos about typical mating patterns. So if you want, there will be a third part, I think, about this idea. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and see you in the next.